In the heart of a dark and forgotten forest, where twisted trees reached like skeletal hands toward the sky and shadows danced beneath a permanent gloom, there lived an ancient and evil witch named Morgoth. She had ruled the forest for centuries, her name whispered in fear by the nearby villagers. No one dared to venture into her domain, for those who did were never seen again. Morgoth's power was drawn from the misery and despair of those around her, and she reveled in their fear. Morgoth was not always evil, but time had twisted her heart. Long ago, she had been a healer, using her magic to help the sick and protect the weak. But after being betrayed by those she had once trusted, her heart grew cold. The people she had saved had turned on her, accusing her of witchcraft when a plague swept through the land. They believed she had brought the sickness upon them and, in their panic, they tried to burn her at the stake. Morgoth survived, but not without scars, both physical and emotional. It was that betrayal that awakened the darkness within her. Now, Morgoth was feared by all. Her home, a blackened tower deep within the forest, was surrounded by a sea of withered trees and a thick mist that never dissipated. The animals of the forest had long since fled, and even the birds dared not sing near her domain. Inside her tower, Morgoth brewed potions of corruption and cast spells that brought misery to those who crossed her path. She delighted in watching crops fail, families fall into despair, and the villagers live in constant fear of her wrath. One evening, as Morgoth sat in her tower, gazing into a large, cracked mirror that showed her visions of the outside world, she saw something unusual. A young girl from the village had entered the forest. Morgoth's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Foolish child," she muttered to herself. "You will be the next to fall." The girl, whose name was Leora, was different from the others. She had heard the stories of Morgoth all her life, but unlike the rest of the villagers, she did not fear the witch. Leora's mother had fallen gravely ill, and no healer in the village could save her. Desperate, Leora decided to find Morgoth, hoping that the witch's ancient magic could cure her mother. She knew the dangers, but her love for her mother outweighed her fear. As Leora ventured deeper into the forest, the trees seemed to close in around her, and the air grew thick and cold. Every step felt heavier than the last, and the silence was oppressive. Still, she pressed on, clutching a small satchel of herbs and flowers she had gathered as an offering to the witch. When Leora finally reached Morgoth's tower, she stood before it, her heart pounding in her chest. The door creaked open as if by some unseen hand, and a voice, soft and menacing, beckoned her inside. "Come in, child." Leora stepped cautiously into the tower. The inside was as dark and foreboding as the forest itself. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling, strange and twisted symbols were etched into the stone walls, and the air smelled of decay and old magic. In the center of the room, standing before a bubbling cauldron, was Morgoth. The witch was a terrifying sight. Her hair was long and wild, streaked with gray and black, and her eyes burned with an unnatural glow. Her skin was pale and gaunt, stretched tight over sharp bones, and her fingers were long and bony, ending in claw-like nails. "What brings you to my forest, little one?" Morgoth asked, her voice dripping with malice. Leora, though terrified, stood her ground. "I seek your help, witch. My mother is dying, and no one can save her. I've heard stories of your power, and I've come to beg for your aid." Morgoth's eyes gleamed with dark amusement. "You are brave to come here, but foolish. Do you not know who I am? What I do to those who trespass in my domain?" "I know," Leora replied, her voice steady. "But I have no other choice. I'll do whatever it takes to save my mother." Morgoth circled the girl, eyeing her with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. "Whatever it takes, you say? You would make a bargain with a witch?" Leora nodded, clutching her satchel tighter. "Yes. If you save her, I'll give you whatever you ask for." The witch smiled wickedly. "Very well. But know this, child, every bargain comes with a price." Morgoth waved her hand over the cauldron, and a thick, black smoke rose from it. She whispered an incantation, and the smoke swirled around Leora, filling her lungs and clouding her vision. In the smoke, Leora saw a vision of her mother, lying in her bed, pale and weak, but then, as Morgoth's magic took hold, her mother's eyes opened, her color returned, and she was healed. Leora gasped, her heart filled with hope. "You did it! You saved her!" Morgoth chuckled darkly. "Yes, child, I have saved her. But now, it is time for your part of the bargain." Leora felt a chill run down her spine. "What do you want?" The witch's eyes glowed brighter as she leaned in close. "Your soul." Leora's blood turned to ice. She hadn't expected this, but she couldn't back out now. Her mother's life was at stake. "If that's what it takes," she whispered, her voice trembling, "then I give you my soul." Morgoth's laughter echoed through the tower. "Foolish child. You are so eager to sacrifice yourself. But I am not without mercy. I will give you one chance to save yourself." Leora's heart raced. "What do you mean?" The witch gestured toward a tall, ancient hourglass on a nearby table. The sand within it was already falling. "You have until the last grain of sand falls to break the curse and free yourself from our bargain. But beware, the path will not be easy. Without another word, Morgoth disappeared into the shadows, leaving Leora alone in the dark tower. Panicked but determined, Leora raced from the tower, knowing she had little time. The forest around her seemed even more sinister than before, the trees whispering dark secrets, the shadows shifting unnervingly. But she pressed on, her mind racing to find a way to break the curse. As she ran through the forest, she remembered stories her grandmother had told her, stories of the old magic that was even older than Morgoth. There was one place in the forest where the light of the full moon could break any spell, but it was hidden deep within the darkest part of the woods. Without hesitation, Leora made her way toward the heart of the forest. The journey was treacherous, and as the sand in the hourglass slipped away, she faced terrible trials. Creatures born of Morgoth's dark magic stalked her through the trees, and twisted roots seemed to rise from the ground, trying to ensnare her. But with each step, Leora grew more determined. Finally, as the moon rose high in the sky, Leora reached the ancient clearing. It was a circle of towering stones, bathed in the soft silver light of the moon. She stepped into the center, clutching the satchel of herbs and flowers, and whispered a prayer to the ancient spirits of the forest. As the last grain of sand fell, a bright light erupted from the stones, filling the clearing with its warmth. The curse was broken, and Leora's soul was freed. Back in her tower, Morgoth felt the shift in the air. The girl had done it, she had broken the witch's curse. Morgoth's rage filled the forest, but there was nothing she could do. Leora had escaped her clutches. As Leora returned to her village, she found her mother healthy and whole, as if the sickness had never touched her. And though Morgoth's power still lingered in the dark corners of the forest, Leora knew that the witch's grip on the land had been weakened. Morgoth would never forget the girl who had outwitted her, but Leora was no longer afraid. From that day forward, the villagers spoke of Leora not just as a brave daughter, but as the girl who had outsmarted the evil witch Morgoth, bringing hope back to a land long overshadowed by fear.